Minnesota Twins drop game one in Arizona tonight, 5-4. We're breaking it all down. It's coming up next on the Locked On Twins POSTCAST.
You are Locked On Twins POSTCAST, part of Locked On Minnesota on the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
What's up? What's up? Back in the lab, back at it. Another Minnesota Twins POSTCAST episode right here on the Locked On Sports Minnesota Network. You got myself, Luke Inman, at Luke_Spinman. That's the man. He's back. C.J. Baumgartner, Twins expert over at Zone Coverage MN. He's on X at Baum CJ30. And CJ, before we jump into all the action from tonight, quick reminder, tonight's episode brought to us by Prize Picks, the easiest and most exciting way to play daily fantasy sports. Go to prizepicks.com/LockedOnMLB. Use code, all lowercase, LockedOnMLB for a first deposit match up to $100. All right, man. Twins currently in the middle of this, long 9-game West Coast road trip. Just got done taking 2 out of 3 versus Oakland. Now it's on to Arizona tonight and then up to Seattle for 3 more before they finally come back home. But game 1 tonight, Joe Ryan on the mound gets into some trouble early, right? Bottom first, gives up a 2-run home run. Next inning, a triple, couple more singles. That scores 2 more. Twins down 4-0 early in this one. Top 5. Byron Buxton bombs another one. He's been heating up. That gets them to within 3. 2 innings later, Ryan Jeffers hits a 3-run bomb. That ties things back up at 4 apiece. Diamondbacks, though, they come right back. Bottom 7, infield hit. They go back up 1. So top 9, last chance, 2 outs. Byron Buxton, again, at least keep things interesting, keeps things alive, doubles down the left field line, keeps things dramatic. And then Ryan Jeffers, next at bat, lines out to left field. Twins lose 5-4. They drop game 1 to Arizona, and they fall to 43-36 on the year. Let's talk Joe Ryan here in a second. But first, just as always, kind of biggest takeaways, your A topics from game 1 versus the Diamondbacks. What do you got tonight?
Baseball can be a cruel game, man. Like the Twins felt like they hit the ball hard all night. They just hit it right at people, hit it on the ground a little bit too much. It felt like the third baseman's name I'm blanking on, but it felt like they just hit at Suarez every single time. Like just a hard hit 2-hopper, and they just were able to make a snag. I mean, that's just how it goes. Sometimes it's not excusing some of the mistakes that they made in today's game, but like if you chalk it up, sometimes it's like, I don't know, man, we put a good swing on the ball. Even Jeffers hit to end the game. Jeffers' contact play to end the game. He hits it right at the left fielder, smoked off the bat, but there's nothing you can do when you hit it right at the guy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know you and I haven't talked in a few games, but the Twins, man, the Twins have gotten just feels like kind of out of nowhere. 2 top shelf, like A+ performances from their starters those last 2 games in Oakland between Pablo, Bailey Ober. Again, Pablo, 8 innings, 2-hitter, 14 Ks, only 1 walk, easily the best game of the season for him. Night before, it was Bailey Ober, goes the full 9, complete game in the books, 4 hits, 2 earned, 10 Ks. So I guess the hope was Joe Ryan could kind of keep the momentum rolling tonight. Gets off to a little rocky start again. Just talk to us about maybe his night, and then you got to give us your recap on Pablo and Bailey Ober as well, because you and I, again, we haven't recapped the Twins in a few nights, just what they were able to accomplish, I guess, over the weekend as well, because that stuff, it was electric and really encouraging, too, for a lot of different reasons, right?
Yeah, I mean, for Pablo, I know it's against Oakland. I know that, like, obviously who you play matters, but to tie career high in strikeouts and to take a perfect game into the 7th or whatever he did is still really, really important. And you just need one of those get right games. And, I'm not going to say that everything is fixed, but just a nice little nudge in the right direction to kind of even out some of those bad luck starts where the command wasn't quite there and things weren't quite there and gives up maybe a home run or 2 too much. So it was really great for Pablo just to get out there. And really with him and Ober, the thing is they knew that it was a bad Oakland team and they just pitched right at him. They dared them to hit their stuff. Now Ober got knocked around for a couple home runs, but outside of that, I mean, there's solo shots. You can live beyond that. And with Bailey Ober, he pitched a Maddox where he pitched, a complete game in under 90 pitches or whatever the Maddox rule is after Greg Maddox. But yeah, but I mean, like it was a good start for him. And just to kind of go after those guys and attack, basically just not being scared of those Oakland hitters. Yeah, it's just against Oakland, but still not only did they have 2 dominant performances, but they really gave the bullpen a rest, which is what they seriously needed after the last couple weeks. So that's really the big thing. Not only that these 2 guys get back on track, but more importantly, in the short term, it helps out just the bullpen management, just to be able to give those guys a little bit of rest. And then they had the off day yesterday, just putting things in the right direction. But to Joe Ryan tonight, the first time through the order, they talked about it with Walker, the guy who hit the home run in the first inning, that he has like 9 of his home runs coming in his first at bat of the game. He's a guy who just comes in, locked in, ready to go. And Joe Ryan's a guy that will give up kind of the mistake pitch, especially early in games. And it's the recipe for not disaster, but a recipe for things to go wrong. And it really felt like that first time through the order, the Diamondbacks just blitzed Ryan. They were ready for whatever he was going to come at them. He was going to throw at them. And the second time through the order, third time through the order, Joe Ryan made the adjustments and salvaged, obviously it's not a quality start, but still salvaged a start that kept you in the game, and it allowed the Twins to come back and tie it late. So not the best outing for Ryan this year, obviously, for somebody who's been the Twins' most consistent and most productive starting pitcher. But at the end of the day, he kept the team in the game, but when you lose a game by a run, you go back and you nitpick everything and you nitpick this and that. And that's just how it goes. And I thought overall Ryan wasn't great, but ultimately gave the Twins a chance to win.
And we can touch on this more a little bit in depth tomorrow night, but Chris Paddock plays on the 15-day now as well. So maybe just quick knee-jerk reaction, right? The ripple effect, what that all looks like with the rotation. And for the time being too, and like, is the realistic hope that 15 days is enough, I guess, for these types of injuries? Just, going off just history and other pitchers, starting pitchers with these dead arm scenarios, like, is that going to be enough to get him back to where he needs to be, if you had to guess?
I mean, I'm no doctor, but I think really it just kind of depends, right? Like everybody's different with these kind of injuries. Some guys, all they need is just like one trip through the order. I'm good. Give me a couple, give me 10 days, give me a couple weeks, and I'll be ready to go, especially with the All-Star break coming around. So you could get kind of one more extra week into that rest period, or maybe you get one more, shorter start to kind of get things back on track, get an extended rest again. But really, I mean, he could miss the 15 days. He could miss more. And the thing that it sets up for we just saw it with Paddock. He hadn't had a great last couple starts, and he's a guy that has not pitched a lot of innings. He missed most of 2022 and pretty much all of 2023 as a starter. He pitched out of the bullpen a little bit. That's much different than trying to pitch a whole season as a starter. And the Twins really let him pitch too. He'd be a guy who'd mop up some innings. They weren't afraid to let him go, not necessarily deeper into games all the time, but just the fact that it felt like they weren't being as cautious with his innings, maybe not a bad thing necessarily, but just maybe not as people expected.
Sure.
And it's just kind of a thing of, this is a guy who needs to build himself back up to get to a full season's worth of innings pitched. And you're just going to kind of have these bumps in the road. I mean, really for any pitcher, but especially for somebody who's coming off Tommy John surgery.
Yeah, well said there. Byron Buxton, by the way, just on an absolute tear all of a sudden. This is kind of what he does now. Is it not 2-3 bad weeks, ice cold, bottom of the order guy, just hoping for a splash play or two at the plate? Then he flips the switch, starts spraying it all over the park again. Hot, cold, but another home run tonight, had another home run Sunday night. Double tonight again in the 9th inning, keep things alive. Is that just baseball in general over a long season, a lot of ebbs and flows, or is this like a Byron Buxton thing specific to him we've kind of grown accustomed to at this point, I guess?
Yes and no. I mean, yeah, everybody goes through slumps and streaks, and that's just baseball, but Byron Buxton is so extreme with that, because he could play like the best player in baseball for a week, who's making plays in center field, cannon arm, can run all over the bases, rip doubles, hit home runs like he did today. And then he can be a guy that's just a walking 3 pitches and back to the dugout, and he's not making contact, and he's just behind on everything like he was with the fastballs, can't figure out the breaking pitch. It's so extreme. That's what makes it different than just your normal kind of up and down season or up and down just kind of player track record. But for Buxton right now, yeah, he's ripping things. He's found ways to catch up to the fastball. I think they mentioned on the broadcast, all of his home runs this season have been hit off the fastball, and getting back-to-back home runs in back-to-back days. And then that double in the 9th inning, didn't score that tying run, but when Buxton's playing well, the ball does just jump off his bat. And even the at-bat before the home run, it was a long fly ball out to the warning track, and it still felt like, again, he had a good jump off that. So he's starting to figure it out. You just kind of have to ride the Byron Buxton wave. It's frustrating, especially for a lot of fans, to kind of have to hear that. But at this point in his career, you kind of just have to take these moments and just kind of ride the wave until it doesn't happen anymore.
Yeah, good breakdown there. All right, CJ, Rocco report time. Favorite, least favorite move, decision from today's game, whatever it may be. Game 1 versus the Diamondbacks. The Rocco report. It says what?
Well, it was interesting that the Twins brought in, not interesting, I should say. Jorge Alcala has been pitching pretty well, but the Rocco report kind of says, he obviously didn't want to throw Griffin Jacks, multiple games in a row. He pitched a lot over the weekend. He was the only Twins pitcher, I believe, who pitched on Sunday's game, filling in for Pablo Lopez. So I think basically it's trying to give those other guys a look. And Jorge Alcala had been pitching pretty well. And I think the plan was probably Alcala 7th, and then you have Jax coming in the 8th, and then Duran 9th is probably the plan. But sometimes you have to bring in those stoppers early. And now it's revisionist history because Alcala gave up the run. But I would have liked to see Griffin Jacks come in that situation just to kind of keep that game where it's at and let the Twins offense, especially with the middle of the order, top to middle of the order coming up, kind of set the table for them. But it's a nitpick at the end of the day.
All right, plenty more deep dive from this one. Plus, we got our nerdy stat of the day. That's all coming up right after this. All right, quick reminder, today's episode brought to us by eBay Motors. Passion, drive, patience, the formula for winning championships is also what keeps your ride or die alive. And eBay Motors, they got everything you need to maintain your vehicle and level it up to the ultimate peak performance. Superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights. They got it all. And whether you're into speed, power, or style, they got you covered. Check this out. With over 122 million parts for your number one ride or die, you'll always find exactly what you're looking for. And with eBay's Guaranteed Fit, your part guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With all the parts you need at the prices you want, easy to turn your car into the MVP and bring home that win. Keep your ride or die alive at ebaymotors.com. Eligible items only. Exclusions apply. eBay's Guaranteed Fit, only available to U.S. customers. I know it's early, but if you had to guess, who do you think represents this team at the All-Star game? Like, do we have any for sures that you got on the list, top of your head? And then who are the bubble 50-50 guys right now that maybe have a chance?
Well, I think the bubble 50-50 guy probably is Carlos Correa, and mainly just because he's a shortstop, and this year there's so many good candidates right now in the American League that he probably isn't going to get there just being voted in alone. But it might be like, okay, well, the Twins need an all-star representative. Carlos Correa is a big name. Let's put him on the team. Let's get him going. I could see that happening as kind of a bubble guy, but really I think probably off the top of that head, it's going to be Joe Ryan, just because he's a starting pitcher. The Twins had 2 starting pitchers get in last year. You need one representative, and I think Joe Ryan's been kind of the most consistent guy for the Twins this season. And I think it's pretty easy for an all-star team to kind of throw an extra pitcher into the mix and kind of work some things around there than it is to add another position player like that. All-star voting this year has been really, as it is all the time, can be kind of weird when it comes to this kind of stuff, but I think Joe Ryan is that guy that ends up being the Twins all-star.
That makes sense, too. When you look at it all on paper, you just spread it out top to bottom. Look at the roster, depth chart, who's done what so far this year. Joe Ryan kind of feels like the default answer.
Dark horse pick could be Royce Lewis.
Royce Lewis, absolutely. Should be at least in play. And again, these next, week, 2, what do we got? Yeah, about 2 weeks or so, still is going to come into play here and decide a few things as well. There was a lot of steam on Brooks Lee the last week or two. I know he's just been ripping it up for the Saints as of late. And I know a lot of people kind of thought, okay, maybe we're getting close to finally getting our first taste of action with him finally up in the bigs. But what do you think the best, or I should say the right game plan is they should take with him that's smart for both, this year, the short term, but then also like down the road, more long-term big picture for him? What do you think the right play is with Brooks Lee this year and beyond?
Well, I think the play for Brooks Lee this year is he's really, not only does he have to earn it, like he's been hitting well. He's got to hit, like he's got to hit so well that it's just undeniable. Like, remember Matt Wallner last year just had this big run where it's like he had an OPS of like 1,500 or just something insane where it was like, this guy has nothing to prove
You
right
have
now.
no choice. As a coach, you have no choice. I have to.
Right.
Yeah.
Exactly. And the thing with Brooks Lee is, obviously Ed Julian isn't hitting as well as they'd like him to, or just, maybe he's working on some stuff, but like, it's not like he's necessarily busting up AAA pitching right now. It's been fine, but not great. But he's got to compete with Ed Julian, who's already on the 40-man roster. Willie Castro right now has been playing very, very well and can hold down second base, switch hitter. Yeah, you have Kyle Farmer before him. Basically, It's going to take one of two things to happen. Either he, and maybe really a combination of the two, somebody's got to get hurt or vastly underperform, and Brooks Lee has to overperform so much that basically the Twins' hands are tied. Because right now, there's just no way for him to just get a call up, because where are you going to play him? And you got to add him to the 40-man roster, which means you have to cut somebody you have to DFA somebody, add somebody to the 60-day IL, whatever you got to do, you have to clear a spot for him. And then you have to get him consistent playing time. He's the Twins' number 2 overall prospect. You're not just going to call him up to be like a once a week player. If you're calling him up, he's going to be starting almost every day. And right now there's just not that spot, because the Twins, especially in the infield, just really feel like they kind of have things locked down. Now, maybe you push Willie Castro out to left field and then you can put Brooks Lee in at second base. But again, it just really feels like the Twins are going to let Brooks Lee cook a little bit more, because I think for this year, they're going to let their veterans kind of roll with it. And then I think next year, things will obviously change a little bit. And I think overall prospect development is not linear. As we saw last year,
Right.
Julian, Wallner, and Lewis provided so much contributions to that team last year. And Wallner and Julian are both having trouble getting up to the big leagues right now this year. So, you kind of have to, again, as we talked about with Buxton, ride the wave. You have to ride the wave with some of these prospects. And I think there's just no incentive for the Twins to call them up right now, because there's just not that guaranteed spot, and you're going to have to make some room somewhere else. And they're just not in a position to really do either one.
And that all makes sense. That was a great breakdown. So is there a guy, another young pup near the top of their list prospect wise, that has a better chance of getting called up before a guy like Brooks Lee? I know Festa was thrown out quite a bit as well. Maybe there's a third guy in the mix too. I'm drawing a blank on, but who else is close to coming up and maybe has a better chance of coming up before Brooks Lee?
Well, I mean, David Festa's the guy that you'd think of in terms of just a guy who's not been called up before, and he's in the same situation as Lee, where he's not on the 40-man roster. So again, some things kind of have to break his way, but what's in favor of Festa is the fact that, one, he's been pitching at St. Paul for most of the year, where Brooks Lee missed the first couple months with some, I believe, a herniated disc. So he's only played in St. Paul for less than a month, where Festa's been pitching for most of the season. Has kind of built himself up as the AAA season has gone on in a very hitter-friendly league that the St. Paul Saints play in. The one thing that breaks in favor of Festa is just that starting pitchers get hurt a lot easier. And Chris Paddock is already on the IL. You could call up Louis Varland and you could call up Festa. Both those guys have pitched early in the week, or at least soon enough where it's probably not going to happen within the next 5 days, within the next turn of the rotation.
Mm-hmm.
But with the off day, everybody kind of gets their normal day of rest anyways. If you go through everybody one more time and maybe you scratch Festa from his next start, theoretically he could be the play. And that's the thing. Starting pitching just has a much higher rate of getting hurt than a everyday second baseman does. And it just leaves the opportunity, not that Festa necessarily has earned it more than Lee, but just the fact of, sometimes you don't really get a choice. You just have somebody get hurt and step up. But the thing is, Louis Varland's right in front of him. So, he has to prove that not only that he's better than Varland, but also that he's worth, again, taking somebody off of the 40-man roster to have him jump Varland. But I still think it's Festa, just because starting pitchers can get injured a lot more than a second baseman can.
Makes more sense. Okay, nerdy stat of the day time. Give us some sort of crazy stat or fun analytic, Twins related, of course. What do you got tonight, locked and loaded? Lay it on us.
Okay, so we talked about earlier how the Twins, it felt like, have been hitting the ball hard, but really had nothing to show for it. Well, I looked up the numbers on Baseball Savant, and the league average exit velocity for the major league players, 88.5 miles an hour off the bat. That's the league average. Yep. The Twins today had 99.4.
Wow. So they were smashing it. They were hitting it hard today.
They were hitting it hard. They just hit it a little bit too much on the ground and right at people. Mm-hmm. And that's the thing. It's just how baseball is, but they were smashing the ball today. And again, it's moral victories. It's kind of the same thing of like in basketball. This team took high percentage shots, good shots. They just didn't make them. And, obviously at the end of the day, you got to make shots to win games and you got to get hits to win games. But if you're going process over outcome, it's not the end of the world for the Twins that they lost this one.
Absolutely. Sometimes it's like not all losses are created equal. Still did a lot of good things. You hope that carries over to tomorrow and the rest of this road trip. Speaking of tomorrow, we got to preview game 2 versus the Diamondbacks tomorrow. That's all coming up right after this. Quick reminder, tonight's episode also brought to us by Prize Picks. Prize Picks, America's #1 fantasy sports app with more than 3 million members to date. For me and my money, guys, it's by far the easiest and most exciting way to get in on all the action while you watch your favorite sports and your favorite players. All you got to do, you pick more or you pick less on 2 or more player stats. You watch the winnings roll in. Baseball season obviously in full swing. So whether it's strikeouts, RBIs, home runs, you name it, they got it. Take your pick on more or less and add them to your Prize Picks entry today. For example, you could ride the Byron Buxton and Royce Lewis wave, hammer the over on pretty much any stat you want to choose from with those two. Plus, Prize Picks now offers Apple Pay for quick and easy deposits into your account all season long. Download the Prize Picks app today. Use code all lowercase, Locked On MLB for a first deposit match up to $100. Okay, game 2 tomorrow. Woods Richardson back on the mound for his 12th start, taking on Ryan Nelson. Anything noteworthy for tomorrow's matchup we should keep in mind, or anything about these next 5 road games for that matter you're thinking about, just kind of on the forefront of your mind, we should keep our eyes on and jot down as well?
Same thing with Simeon Woods Richardson that I basically feel with every one of his starts. And he's done a good job for the most part. It's just, can it get 5 innings out of you? And by the time you leave the game, are we in a chance to win it? If I'm the Twins, that's basically the expectation level that you have for your 5th starter. You're not expecting him to go out and throw 7 shutout innings, especially on a nightly basis. You're just, by the time you leave the game, did you get us in a good enough spot, deep enough wise? And are we in a position where we can still win the game? And if Simeon Woods Richardson can do that, especially by keeping the ball in the ballpark, things will go pretty well for him. But just kind of broadly for the rest of this road trip, really, they have that series against Seattle, who's playing much better than when the Twins played them about a month and a half ago. So they're going to have to, it's not going to be the same way around when the Twins took 3 out of 4 from them. Seattle has like a 9-game lead in the AL West, and they're pretty much on cruise control with that division. And if you want to come away with the winning road trip, you're going to need to win the next 2 games of the series and just kind of set yourself up in a good position, kind of play with house money when you're going to go up into Seattle.
Okay, last one before we get out of here. You and I were just chit-chatting before we went live, before we came on the stream. Cleveland just won't lose, huh? It's for real? Like, how much longer are we actually supposed to sit here and wait for them to come back down to earth? Because it feels like it's just taken forever. They just won their 7th in a row tonight, beating Baltimore of all teams. It's getting depressing, man, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, look, Cleveland fans shut this off. You don't want me to say this. They might have won the division. I mean, I'm not saying that they have. I'm not saying everything's over, but as a Twins fan, I haven't really checked the division standings for first place in such a long time, really since Cleveland swept Minnesota in Cleveland. Ever since then, I was like, you know what? I'm not going to worry about that. There's 3 wild card spots. Try and hang on to one of those and avoid playing the Yankees in the first round. That's pretty much where it sits because Cleveland just refuses to lose. And they're not doing it because they have lockdown pitching. They're doing it because they're hitting. Stephen Kwan and Dean Fry and obviously J-Ram, they just hit, which is so it's just so un-Cleveland. 2 years ago, everybody talked about the devil magic that the Guardians have of just slapping everything in play and somehow it all just works out. They're driving the ball. They're hitting it hard. They dropped 10 runs today and swept Baltimore, who's battling it out with the Yankees for first place in the AL East. I just got nothing right now. They're in cruise control, and until proven otherwise, just going to assume that they're going to run away with this division.
Frustrating to say the least, just because of this imaginary low bar we set for this division before the season even started. And granted, still a lot of baseball left to be played. Who knows? They're definitely not out of it. But as of right now, I feel your pain, feel your frustration. Certainly not the start for both the Twins and Cleveland, more so than anything that a lot of fans expected. All right, we should get out of here. Twins lose tonight 5-4. Joe Ryan gets the loss tonight. Back on the road tomorrow. Game 2 in Arizona. Woods Richardson on the mound for that one. First pitch, another late one, guys. 8:40 p.m. first pitch time. As always, huge shout out to everybody that joined us on the stream. Rest assured, we're going to be back each and every game right here to break it all down. Quick reminder, too, got to go check out all CJ's work on Twitter at BombCJ30, plus all the work he's always ripping up over at ZoneCoverageMN.com as well. Plus, if it's not too much trouble, as always, please like this video, subscribe to the channel. We're so close to 8,000 subscribers. That's always much, much appreciated as well. All right. That'll do it for us tonight. CJ Baumgartner. I'm Luke Inman on Twitter at Luke_Spinman. We'll see you tomorrow night. But until then, signing out.